This talk of mine is much more difficult than the first one, because this one I have to criticize myself. These slides are a review of some of the works that we have carried out. Purely architectural works. We have done a lot of urban design and planning work, which are not included in this, as the title of our conference is on architecture. Consequently, those have not been included. And we have also carried out projects on environmental studies and various other things that I have been involved with, such as the Iranian studies and so on and so forth, which has some of it is quite considerable amount of work, but none of those are included. This is purely about the architectural side of our work. This is my thesis, architectural thesis at Liverpool University, 1958, yes. It's that the design was a proposal for the National Assembly of Iran, and this part of the design was to come actually into the Baharistan square, which would, underneath it would be open, and only with this reinforced concrete bowl, which in fact was the main hall of assembly. And the symbolic side of this was to bring the parliamentarians, so to speak, psychologically into the street. This, I'm afraid, is an old and very bad photograph. This is the first bowling alley, mechanical bowling alley in Geneva, in Mérin, in Geneva. And the interior is completely changed to what we did. And unfortunately, I don't have any photographs, but we are in the process of trying to get in touch with the AMF people to see if we could get the then photographs of the project. This is my first work in Iran, in Caremon. This is a house for Dr. Arjumand, a friend of mine. This was actually designed in 1960, and it is a I think even today it looks a bit different and maybe a little modern. It's more than 50 years, half a century old, this building. Of course, unfortunately, a lot of our work has either been demolished, they have been messed up. 5 town plans that we did between Kermanshah and Qasr Shirin were completely destroyed by the Iran-Iraq war. And so actually very little remains of my work. And we just have to look at the photos. As you see on the left, this was this very modern building is actually carried out in a very simple, traditional manner with load-bearing walls and, of course, the bowl on the top of the building has no function whatsoever. It was simply designed, as those of you who have been to Caremon, they know that the sky of Caremon is very well known. And one really, until one sees it, one can't believe it, that you can almost feel that you can touch the stars. And this touching of the stars is a reality in Caremon, that when you sit there, and this was just simply, and half of that, the top, there's no roof to it, so it was designed for relaxation in the evenings, especially hot desert climate of Caremon at daytime, but cool nights in the evening. This is a design for Danishgah Milli, which wasn't carried out. It's an amphitheater, and this was in 1963. I returned to Iran in 1961. I was working for a few years in Geneva after I graduated, and that's why we saw some of those buildings. This is another design for an assembly hall for the same university. This as well was not built. Now, this is a house in Tehran, and you have to look at the date of 1963. For that period, you saw some of the works that I had shown. Very simple buildings were being built, not only in Iran, but in a lot of other parts of the world. And this was, unfortunately, the client went blind, and we never built this house. And in the process that we were doing the working drawings, it was for Hossein Abdo. He was a lawyer. And this is the construction of the building is foreseen with reinforced concrete spray on steel mesh, and which was a very novel concept for the period. This is a house in Tehran, House Jalali, a very simple house and quite a small house. You see the plans. The rooms are of no regular shape. The corridor, the entrance is here, and the corridor has different widths, and the rooms are of different shapes. And the inside, as you see, was done in very simple brickwork, and the room ceilings were flat, but the corridor was in arc form, the ceilings. This was a proposal for a Persian pavilion in California, comprised of 3 buildings, a restaurant in the middle, on on a lake, a Persian bathhouse, and this Turkish bathhouses, which are so well known in Europe, they are in fact of Persian origin. It's not like, very much like yogurt, which is a Turkey, the mast, the Persian mast, which has come to Europe under that name. And the Turkish bath has the same way of having come to. And this was, this building here was supposed to be a bazaar. A very modern building, and all these three are very modern buildings. This is the model and the drawing of the Persian bathhouse. And this is the model and perspective and plan of the restaurant section. And the floor of the restaurant completely was in glass, and it was on water with some space in between. And of course, while you were sitting in the restaurants, you could see the fish and so on and so forth, which were lit to see. This is a different thing. We have designed 5 parks in Iran. One of them more than 100 hectares. And we designed every single building in these parks. And every single building had its own form and shape. And this is a model and the plan of an open-air theater and cinema in Ahvaz. This is a house in Tehran. This was built for Mr. Nahavandi, not to be mistaken with Dr. Nahavandi, who was Minister of Development and Housing. This Mr. Nahavandi, he was a building contractor. And this, in 1965, it made a lot of the rounds of all the newspapers and journals, and most of these projects have been published in European journals or books. This is another view of the same building, the same house. Another view. I enjoy doing ceramic work, which I design myself. And in a lot of my work, you see either sculptural work or murals or ceramic designs. And these are some 3D views of the project. The fireplace was a very interesting fireplace because we have a saying in Persian, we say, Ab o Atash. And these are very contrasting things that when we think that two things can't be combined, we say that they're like Ab and Atash. Well, we managed to combine these two. And there is, at the bottom there, we're drawing this in a 3D way so that we can show it better, but it isn't ready yet. From surrounding of this fireplace there, down there, there's a sheet of water which came down, and there's a bowl in the middle where the fire was inside. So when you sat there, you saw the bowl of fire, and the whole was completely all the way around surrounded by a sheet of water. And the design and the execution of this sheet of water was very, very difficult to do so that it wouldn't be in drops or in great volume and so on and so forth. This is the plan. All the rooms were circular, and they were connected in different ways. And there's this terrace which both acted as external space, but this part of it was used as the dining area. This shows the cheminée. It's not a very good photograph, I'm afraid. You can just barely probably see the water coming down, or you can't see it. And this is the ceiling of the living room. The owners had a lot of rowdy parties. They were very sociable people, so we had to make acoustical provisions so that the noise wouldn't become too unbearable. And this is the covered area which led to the entrance to the building. This is a design for a mosque in Ahvaz. And this was in 1965, and this unfortunately was not built either. But this was a very different concept to normal mosques. And the colored parts that you see are not ceramic, but stained glass. And this is a 3D concept of the inside and the outside. We had to, as you know, mosques are some parts are for ladies and some parts for gentlemen. So the part up above there had its entrance from the other side, and that was there, and this part was for men. It looks as if men pray more than women because we'd foreseen more space for the men. This is my own house and my executive office. Both were built on the same plot of land. This part above was my house, and this part, which was in 2 stories, was the executive office. But our main offices were at the other side, opposite this. We had a 6-story building and 5 departments: architecture, urban planning, interior design, how many did I say? 3, urban planning, anyway, 5 electrical and mechanical. And each floor had its own director, and we did everything in-house. In other words, from the concept to the final drawings were done in-house in our own offices. This is another view. As you see, this is the entrance door to the office, which has, this was a ceramic design which I did, and each single piece of ceramic was purposely done and put into the oven, and they all had different levels of external angles. Another view of the house, photograph of the house. Now, this house was hexagonal. All the rooms were hexagonal. Yes, thank you. These columns are made with 4 water pipes welded together. Now, this may sound very simple, but it isn't as simple as all that, because when you start welding these, they buckle. So they had to be fixed from both ends, and 4 welders had to weld at the same time, simultaneously, so that we wouldn't get the buckling. And these 4 water pipes hold huge weights. These ceilings were double brick ceilings, traditional, of great weight, and they were all held on these very, very slender columns. This is a 3D view of the thing, of the house again, plan, section. This is our executive office, which I told you about, in Boulevard Shahrzad in Tehran. And some of the plans. This is another house in Vanak for 2 brothers who, there's one house on the right and another one on the left. There are 2 houses, but on the same plot of land. This is a bird's eye view of the house. Another view, and again a 3D view of the. This is this was Qasr Yakh, the ice palace, the first ice skating rink in Tehran, and I very much enjoyed doing this because I managed to learn ice skating as well. This is a very controversial project. Pages and pages have been written on this. This is my proposal for the surrounding of the Imam Reza shrine. And actually, I presented this a couple of years ago, our project completely here at Iran Heritage, and I explained some of the things which were conceived and so on. And this has not been carried out, and some strange happenings have been done ever since. And unfortunately, it's a great hodgepodge around the shrine right now. This was a huge project for Mahmoudabad, for the National Iranian Oil Company, and it wasn't built. Another project was finally chosen, but this was a series of sort of holiday resorts for the oil company people. This is the project for the Grand Lodge of Iran. This was a competition between the Iranian architects who were Freemasons, and my project won, but unfortunately It got into the Iranian Revolution. Consequently, it is not built, but all the construction drawings have been made as well. This is the museum and library. Okay, you have to give me another 4 or 5 minutes, please. This is the museum and library of Mashhad, which was built in 1976. And our architectural work can be divided into 2 types. Those which are freestanding, which are extremely modern, and those which are in the proximity of religious or classical buildings, that we were been always very careful in order to not to spoil the general atmosphere of the thing. And this building, although the facade is very modern, but at the same time, we have respected the heights of the monuments surrounding the Imam Reza shrine, and we have used white bricks in order to adhere to the atmosphere of the place. And yet, we have not succumbed to this idea that I was talking about this morning, that we're always trying to say, let us have an Iranian concept or an Iranian architecture. These are some of the interiors. This was a monument on the right in Mashhad, rather like the Shahyad of Mashhad, and it existed until 2 or 3 years ago, and it was demolished for no reason whatsoever about 3 years ago. They said that it interrupted the view to the haram, which was not the case. It was just an excuse. And on the left, you see it's a very modern sculpture, which I did in copper in Mehrabad Airport. And this was in 1962. Consequently, it's more than 50 years ago. This is Bazar Reza. I must tell you that this ceramic work which is done was not part of our project. And Astana Quds Razavi engineers, they always interfered with some of the designs, and they put some of these things on themselves. This is the same bazaar. There's some of the interiors, both old and new. This is another part of the bazaar which is designed in a different way. And this is a 2,000 apartment project in Mashhad again, which was to be, the heating and cooling was to be from the sun source. And this again got into the revolution and it wasn't carried out. This was our presentation. This shows the project better because that's the model of the whole project. And this was a 5-star hotel, a big 5-star hotel for Mashhad as well. Now, I have done a lot of designing of furniture. I'm presenting to you a few of them. This is a chair design. And this is a fiberglass design. Of course, we've done lots of other designs of that. And the mural at the background I've done myself, which of course I haven't shown here. Thank you very much.